There is a moment in Scripture that most people read past without realizing what it hides. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, and it does not announce itself with signs in the sky. Yet it quietly reveals that the rapture follows a timeline, not chaos. What you are seeing is not the event itself, it is what happens before it. The Bible never describes the rapture as random, it describes it as prepared, planned, and preceded by a sequence that unfolds in silence. Long before anyone is taken, something changes in the atmosphere of the world. Not the air, but the attention. People become busy, distracted, confident that tomorrow will look exactly like today. Jesus warned that the days leading up to the end would feel ordinary, eating, working, building, planning. Nothing visibly wrong, nothing visibly urgent. That is why the timeline is hidden, because it does not interrupt life, it blends into it. The first marker is not disaster, it is delay, a slowing of conviction, a quiet loss of urgency. Prayer becomes optional, truth becomes flexible, and readiness becomes something people assume they have without checking. This is where the separation begins, not in the clouds, but in the heart. Some people notice the shift. They feel a weight they cannot explain, a sense that time is thinner than it used to be. Others feel nothing at all, and that difference matters more than most realize. The timeline continues with warning, not shouted, but repeated. Messages that sound familiar enough to ignore. Truth spoken so often that it feels safe to postpone responding. Scripture calls this the moment of watching, not waiting, watching, because waiting assumes you know when something will happen. Watching assumes you do not. The next phase is quiet division, not of nations, but of priorities. Some lives begin to simplify, distractions fall away, convictions sharpen. Others grow louder, faster, more crowded, as if filling every moment will somehow stop time from moving forward. Jesus compared this period to the days of Noah, not because of sin alone, but because of disbelief. People did not reject the warning, they simply did not believe it required immediate action. And that is the danger of the hidden timeline. It never feels urgent until it is complete. The world does not collapse before the rapture. It stabilizes just enough to make people comfortable. This is why the image of light matters, not because it is visible to everyone, but because only those looking upward notice when it begins to intensify. The timeline does not end with a countdown. It ends with recognition. Some will realize too late that the silence they felt was not peace, it was patience. And patience always runs out. The rapture is not the beginning of the story, it is the reveal of who was already ready. And this is where the timeline grows more specific, more personal, more impossible to ignore. Because the next movement does not happen around the world, it happens within individuals. And once that phase begins, there is no visible sign that it has started, only the consequences of ignoring it. This is why understanding the timeline matters, not to predict a date, but to recognize the season, because the final moments do not arrive suddenly, they arrive quietly, after everything necessary has already taken place. And what happens next in this sequence is something most people never talk about, not because it is unclear, but because it forces a question few are willing to answer yet. A question that reveals whether the timeline has already reached its final stage.
When that inner shift begins, it doesn't announce itself with fear. It arrives as clarity, a strange awareness that certain choices can no longer be delayed. People begin to feel uncomfortable doing things that once felt normal. Entertainment loses its grip, noise feels heavier, and silence starts to speak louder than words. This is not coincidence, it is alignment. The hidden timeline moves from the world into the individual, and this stage is the most overlooked because nothing external changes at first. Jobs remain, schedules continue, life looks the same to everyone else, but internally something has shifted, and once it does, it cannot be reversed. Scripture hints that before the gathering, there is a sealing, not something visible, not a mark, but a settling, a firm decision inside the heart that truth is no longer optional. This is why some people suddenly feel drawn back to Scripture, not out of habit, but hunger. Verses they've heard their entire life begin to sound urgent, as if they were written for this exact moment. Others hear the same words and feel nothing, no resistance, no curiosity, just indifference. And this difference grows wider with time. The timeline does not rush, it waits, allowing everyone to choose comfort or readiness without pressure. Jesus spoke often about this phase using parables, stories where the delay was the test, not the event itself. The oil was not gathered at the last moment, it was prepared long before anyone knew when it would be needed. This is the part most people misunderstand. They assume readiness is emotional, but Scripture presents it as intentional. Every small decision matters here. What you listen to, what you ignore, what you postpone, because postponement is the language of the unprepared. As the timeline progresses, discernment sharpens for some. They begin noticing patterns, not dates, patterns, a repetition of warnings across different places, different voices saying the same thing without coordination. This is not fear spreading, it is confirmation. Meanwhile, distractions intensify, entertainment becomes louder, debate becomes endless, truth becomes something people argue about instead of live by. This is not accidental, it is part of the separation. The timeline does not remove people from the world immediately, it reveals who belongs where before that moment arrives. And here is the unsettling truth. By the time the final stage approaches, most minds are already made up, not because of one big decision, but because of thousands of small ones. The rapture does not change hearts, it exposes them. This is why Jesus emphasized watching more than knowing, because knowing creates confidence, but watching creates humility, and humility is the posture of readiness. The hidden timeline continues to advance quietly, without headlines, without countdowns, but there is a point where preparation turns into final positioning, and that transition is subtle enough that only those paying attention will recognize it. Because when that phase begins, the window for adjustment narrows, not suddenly, but steadily. And what marks that shift is something very few people expect, something that does not look spiritual at all. Yet once it appears, it confirms that the timeline has moved forward again.
As that subtle shift settles in, daily life begins to feel divided in a way that's hard to explain, not between good and bad, but between meaningful and empty. Some conversations start feeling shallow, not because people are wrong, but because time feels expensive now. Moments that once passed unnoticed begin to carry weight, a sense that every choice is being quietly recorded, not by the world, but by something eternal. This is where the hidden timeline becomes uncomfortable, because it does not accuse, it reveals. People notice they are being pulled in one of two directions, toward depth or toward distraction. There is no force, no pressure, just opportunity. Scripture describes this phase as refinement, not punishment. Refinement always happens before separation. Gold is not purified after it is stored. It is purified before it is gathered. This is why some people experience resistance, not from the world, but from within. Old habits feel heavier, excuses feel thinner, and silence becomes unavoidable. Others experience the opposite. They feel an urgency to fill every moment, more noise, more activity, less stillness, because stillness is where awareness grows, and awareness demands response. The hidden timeline advances without changing the calendar. Days still pass, weeks still move forward, but spiritually something is narrowing. The space between warning and fulfillment grows smaller, even though nothing outward seems different. Jesus spoke of this when he said the door would one day be shut, not slammed, not announced, simply closed, and those outside would not realize when it happened, only that it had. This is why the preparation phase feels gentle, almost merciful. No one is rushed, no one is forced, everyone is given time, but time itself is part of the test. The longer things remain normal, the easier it becomes to assume they always will, and assumption is the greatest danger in the hidden timeline. Those who are watching notice small confirmations, a verse that aligns with a message they heard days earlier, a conversation that answers a question they never asked aloud. These are not coincidences, they are reminders. Reminders that the timeline is active, even when it feels quiet. Others dismiss the same moments, calling them random, calling them imagination. And slowly the gap between these two responses grows, not visibly, not socially, but spiritually. This is the phase where separation happens internally, long before it happens physically. The rapture will not interrupt this process, it will complete it. Which means by the time that moment arrives, nothing will be unfinished. And the timeline continues toward a point where watching turns into recognition, where those paying attention realize something has shifted again, not in the world, but in access. Because the next stage is not about preparation anymore, it is about position, and position determines outcome. What signals that transition is subtle enough that most people overlook it, yet clear enough that those who are watching cannot miss it. And once that indicator appears, the timeline does not pause, it advances with purpose, leading into a phase that reshapes everything people thought they understood about waiting.